Hi students, it's Ms. Adams again. I'm going to tell you a little bit more about my trip to Mexico. Remember, I was traveling with a group of teachers and we were chosen by the US government in a Fulbright Hayes scholarship to travel 6 weeks, 3 through Mexico, 3 through Canada. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about this part of my trip to Mexico. So this is kind of an interesting story. I'll quickly tell you that this is a church built on the site where this traveler was traveling, and was carrying that walking stick. And where he stopped, he put the stick in the ground, and they say that these plants grew up where the stick was, and you can see that they are in the form of a cross. I have a better picture where you can see that the little sort of sticker things that grow off of it are these little red crosses. So they built the church there in his honor, and you can see the different plantings. Now, well, that's in Querétaro, and this also is in Querétaro. Now, maybe you never realized that Mexico at one time was ruled by an emperor. The emperor was named Maximilian. He was Austrian, but he was sent by Napoleon from France to rule Mexico. The Mexicans weren't super excited about having a ruler not of their choice, and they didn't want to have an emperor. And so in the end, they overthrew him. And in Querétaro is the place they kept him before they killed him by a firing squad. This is the room he was in prior to his death. And you can see that it happened in 1867. To give you kind of some perspective on that, that is right after the time of the American Civil War, which ended in 1865. So the United States had been around as a nation for about 100 years, but Mexico during that time, during part of that time prior to it, they only had one emperor, and it was Maximilian, and they overthrew him. Here's the place where he was. Also, now we're in Guanajuato, which is right by there. You can see once again the aqueduct. It looks like a Roman aqueduct. It's very beautiful. Guanajuato is a beautiful city. And if you'll recall in the last video or a video prior, I told you that I stayed in a terrible hotel that had the whole room, which just was awful. And it was quite an experience. One of my parents didn't believe until I had the photographic evidence to prove them that it really wasn't very nice. So we came back there. It's a beautiful town with like really pretty gardens and plantings and manicured trees. And it's an area of silver mining, so a lot of things to purchase and buy. But one of the things we also went to was we went up all these steep hills on these hairpin turns. You can kind of get a perspective. I'm taking these pictures from the window of the bus. And we went to this church. Now, if you were in my class, I did an assignment where I brought a bunch of items for you to look at. And one of them was a really ugly plastic lamp with a blue light bulb. And this is where I got the lamp. The rest of the people on my trip couldn't believe it when I brought it on the bus and put it in the overhead thing. But I did get it. If you recall what the lamp looked like, it was exactly in this shape. That part underneath is the church. It's Catholic church. And even the lamp has those two little things on the sides. It's not as big as the Christ the Redeemer in Brazil, but it certainly reminds me of that. And as you can look down, you can see how steep it is and the turns we went up on the bus. And then you can see the inside of that church and that little crown and those two things on the side. Here we are looking on the way back down. And this is where the Cinco de Mayo battle took place. Mexicans can't understand why people in the United States spend so much time talking about it. It's not Mexican independence. It's not a particularly big battle to them. So they're a little unclear as to how come Americans spend so much time talking about it. Here's some people moving some things on their donkeys. We're in Guanajuato. Now it has a lot more color, a lot of different paint. If you recall, when I was complaining about my prior hotel, I was showing some pictures of the fake castle, and it is a hotel now. And we ended up staying there. So here we are at the fake hotel, at the fake castle hotel. So from One trip, I was a college student looking at it. On the next trip, I was staying there. We went down in the silver mine. A lot of money is made out of silver mining. Mining is dangerous. We had to put these hats on, hard hats, to go down in it. And they're telling us a little bit about it. It's from 1760. You can see the cross and the painting of the Virgin right in the entry. Because a lot of people can die, you can have cave-ins or all kinds of other problems. So here we are going down. You can see how steep those stairs are. Instead of railings, they have these kind of ropes you can hold on to. The guy that was leading the tour was telling us all about it. And then at a certain point, he turned the lights out while we were down there. So we had to walk on those stairs. They're not very uniform, but they say that the miners way back when were indigenous people who wore like leather backpacks as they ran up and down the stairs. So you're way more than a mile above sea level. So I can't imagine doing that. When I was carrying my suitcase up the stairs at that fake castle, I was like, I think that there's extra gravity up here just because it's, you're that much higher and the altitude gives you less oxygen. So you can see us down here, a statue for the miner. Also, we are visiting the home of Diego Rivera. No, this is Benito Juarez, who's the father of one of the patriots who brought about change and freedom for Mexico. Also, we went to the home of Diego Rivera, who's a famous muralist. This is not one of his murals, but it's a mural painted nearby there. And in Mexico, there are a lot of famous, a type of art that's very well known are these famous murals. Diego Rivera painted, is the most famous one. He painted showing all the history of Mexico, and in the buildings at the Mexican capital, they have quite a few beautiful, beautiful paintings by Rivera. Diego Rivera is maybe not as well known now as his wife, Frida Kahlo, also an artist who's very well known. All right, here we are. This is Diego Rivera's home where he was born. Here's back at the castle. You can see the Virgin of Guadalupe. So we went to this island, and the island is called Janitzio, and it is in Lake Pátzcuaro. And so we went out to this island. You get on these boats, and they take you there. It takes about 25 minutes or so, and you can see that statue. The statue is Morelos, who is a famous person fighting for Mexican independence. You can see the island. Now, can you see those fishermen? They call them butterfly fishermen because of the way they use those nets. And they put on kind of a little show when the boats come by. It's really fascinating to see, quite interesting. Then they come and get a tip. Now, they told us you can go up in that statue, and two members of our group, we weren't on the island very long, so I didn't get that far, but they ran up there and they went inside. They said it was not very safe feeling, and they were not really that happy that they'd done it. I believe their words to me were, in the United States, they'd never let you go in anything like that, so I don't know what it was like in there, but there you are. They told us, you can see a lot of people live on the island. They told us not to eat anything there. And so you can see all the people's laundry and their rooftops. And this is a place where one of the biggest Day of the Dead celebrations takes place on the island in this particular cemetery. In Mexico, one of the ways they celebrate their family members and loved ones who've passed on is to have a celebration on the Day of the Dead in the cemetery. And people come to this cemetery. It was locked and closed. The gate was closed, but you can see even the skull and crossbones are there. And we are looking into it. Now, one of the things they told us is do not, under any circumstances, eat anything on this island, which I found kind of fascinating because all it had was places to eat, but they told us do not eat there. I don't know whether it was from the water or what exactly, but they said that we should not eat anything, so we didn't, even though they wanted to sell us tons of stuff to eat. This is my friend Pam. She's a librarian in Colorado, and she ordered a bunch of pencils and erasers, and so she gave them out to kids. So she had quite a crowd around her, more places to eat and drink. Pam and the kids, more places to eat and drink. You could buy these little ice cream bars from people if you were going to eat and drink there. I took this picture. I wanted to be sensitive to people living their lives. On the other hand, I thought it was a good thing to share with kids. Here's a young woman, and she is washing clothes literally in that water on a rock outside the lake. So just know that what your reality is might be different for people who live in other countries. And I took the photos just because I could share that maybe we could have some sensitivity to the fact that people might live very different lives than we do. After we got off the island, we went into the town. It's a town that's really well known for its art. And so they were putting on this little dance. These are dancers, Dance of the Wooden Shoes, I think they called it. And they have these masks on their faces, but they are wearing wooden shoes. So there was a lot of clomping around with it. It was really fun to see. And they have these canes that they hold on to and dance around. You can see the person's playing the violin, somebody playing the guitar. So this is really fun to see. And then I bought this. The woman has it on that's made it. It's all embroidery, and it has 12 different scenes on it, including like one of the island with the statue on it. It has the fishermen. It has those dancers. So just all these different pieces of art. I also bought this. These are all beaded, and they're made from gourds, dried gourds. And then they put this very elaborate pattern. I wish I would have gotten one of those bigger faces. I just got the smaller bowls. But at this point in time, I was like, I don't know how I'm going to get to Canada with all the stuff, because we've been traveling by that bus. So I actually had to go in Mexico City and mail tons of stuff home to myself at a great expense. So by this point of the trip, I was thinking I better stop buying big stuff. All right, so that is my trip to outside of Mexico City, seeing art, seeing dancing, and learning a little bit about the people